I'm so heavily offended that I want to use the word offended in 3 syllables. Offended. And I'll tell you why. It is because my best friend, who lives literally 20 minutes away from where we're sitting right now, decided not to show up to my TED Talk. Now, giving a TED speech, giving a TED Talk is one of the biggest dreams of people's lives. It was one of my biggest dreams as well. So obviously, I don't live in Lahore. I live in Dubai. And I flew all the way from Dubai to deliver this TED Talk only to call my friend, my best friend of 6 years, and to call him and say, "Hey, Numan, listen, I just got offered a TED Talk. I don't know how, but I just got offered a TED Talk. And it is, you're just like my brother. You know what? Scratch that. You're exactly my brother. You are my biological brother. And I really, really, really need you to be at this TED Talk." And as we now know that Numan did not show up to my TED Talk at all. He actually ended up hanging up the phone on me. And I just want to ask you guys a question. Wouldn't that offend you? If your best friend decided to not show up on one of the biggest days of your life, wouldn't that offend you? Yes? Can I get a yes? Thank God. I thought I was like insane. I was going insane. I swear. I mean, it's also Numan's wedding day today. So I did not mention that. Which brings me to my first point. The first thing that matters: context. Context holds such a high regard in our life and everyday life that we go about. It is only through context that we can formulate perspectives. You're all sitting here to listen to these brilliant people give their perspectives on a similar topic. So it is through context that we can formulate these perspectives. And a perspective without context is a weak message that will end up creating a bad situation. Now, from Numan's perspective, I am the worst friend in the world who did not show up to his walima. But from my perspective, he's the worst friend in the world because he didn't show up to the biggest day of my life. And we can both go around and tell each other our versions of a distorted truth. Whereas, in fact, if we started giving context to people as to what the situation is, maybe there will be more understanding. Maybe people will listen to us more. Maybe we will have more of an impact. I added this picture of one of my favorite singers, Matt Healy. He has this tattoo, so I nabbed this weak messages create bad situations off of him. Just wanted to put that out there. Now, context depends heavily on how you choose to tell a story. Now, what are the things that actually eradicate context from a conversation? What are some of the things? And that's when I came to the realization that the victim narrative plays a huge role in this. Now, what does that mean? It is the belief that we as individuals are just victims of some sort of tyrannical societal issues or norms that are present in our society or our culture. We are just people who have to deal with it. And what's ironic is that somewhere between being a victim, you end up becoming a victimizer. On large scale political issues, if you look at it, this is exactly what's happening in Palestine. I don't want to get political, but a genocide, if you take context out of something, a genocide could literally be masked as self-defense. That is how much context plays a huge role in our life. What else is there that eradicates context out of a situation? A baseless belief system. Now, what does that mean? What do I mean when I say a baseless belief system? Now, belief system is something that you truly believe in based on the fact that you have looked at both ends of the spectrums. You understand this end of the spectrum, you understand that end of the spectrum. However, a belief system on its own is completely eradicated if you don't even try to understand what the other perspective is. If you don't even get context on what the other person's perspective is, or whatever they're trying to portray, whatever they're trying to communicate. But wait, how do you get to a point where your mind, heart, and tongue are all on the same page? How do you get to a context? How do you find that context where all three of these things are aligned and you are speaking and uttering nothing but what you truly believe is the truth? And this is where I come to part number 2. So I've broken it down into 3 parts. This is the second part. The second part of what really matters. It is to tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Because if you tell the truth, what happens? Why does the truth hold so much value over our current lifetime? Or not even our lifetime, but in the world and culture in general? Why does the truth trump every single thing every single time? You can see this in religious connotation. You can see this in traditional values. You can see this cultural. You can see this from a philosophical point of view, psychological point of view. The truth has always prevailed. Why is that? But first of all, we need to dissect what does why does the truth even matter? Why does it matter? As you already know that in the context part, I talked about 2 specific things: to eradicate baseless belief systems, and the number 2 point was to end the victim mindset that we all currently have. Being a victim and playing a victim, trying to gain sympathy, trying to gain some ego boost, trying to tell our own version of a distorted truth is the way we tend to gain sympathy and love from one another, which as a generation, we are quite honestly done for if we live with that sort of mindset. And the third thing, which is something that we will be dissecting further while we talk about the truth, is you get to have the adventure of your lifetime when you start telling the truth. Now, what do I mean by that? In order to understand this, I'll tell you the story of Socrates. Now, Socrates was the teacher of Plato. Socrates was considered one of the wisest men in Greece. And I did a bunch of research on this. There's multiple reasons as to why he was considered the wisest man in Greece. But one of the main reasons as to why he was considered the wisest man in Greece and by the people of Athens and the government institutions at the time believed he was the wisest man in all of Greece is due to the fact that he had an inner daemon, an inner voice, or an inner demon, whatever you want to call it. They write it down as Daemon. So an inner daemon. Now, his daemon would not tell him what to do. His daemon would always tell him what not to do. And I think that's beautiful because Socrates lived his entire life listening to his daemon and what we like to call it nafs. He liked to listen to his nafs. Every single time you're about to take a decision, as Umer Ashraf even pointed out as well in his speech, is that every single time you're about to take a decision, stand by it. That is what Socrates left us with. So now Socrates, since he was making the youth at the time think differently, the people of Athens, the institutions at Athens, they told him, you have 6 months. You either leave Athens or we kill you. Is that understood? Leave Athens with your group of young men who think differently, or we will kill you. Now, Socrates, when he would even sit down to make an argument for himself, his daemon would tell him not to even bother with it. Imagine that you're up for trial and you're about to be executed. You've been told to leave the city, but your inner voice, the truth that you listen to, is telling you to stay. So what does Socrates leave us with? He stays in Athens for 6 months. He goes through the trial and he is killed. So what does Socrates end up leaving us with? He leaves us with something that is very profound, something that I believe truly, core fundamentally matters the most. To every single one of you in the audience, this is what matters the most as of right now. We'll build a case further on. For a clear conscience, the truth holds more value than even your life at times. That is what Socrates left us with. It wasn't just that I'll tell the truth. Oh, you know what? I'll just leave Athens and then my teachings can can live even after I die. It wasn't any of that. It was the true belief that I will do nothing except tell the truth. or at least refrain from lying. Now, you can't have a conversation about truth if you don't have a conversation about the other spectrum, which is lying. So, why do people lie? I was left in a conundrum. I was like, why do people lie? There are multiple reasons. I can fill up this entire presentation. I could take up every speaker's time and still not be done with the amount of reasons why we lie. So, I could come up with a few. You lie because you want to cover up something bad. You want to impress someone. You want to appear a certain way. Blah, blah, blah. So you lie for a multitude of reasons. However, the main reason, the core fundamental reason as to why you lie is because you are afraid of the outcome. The fear of the outcome is what's preventing you from telling the truth. But what if I told you, just a change of perspective, what if I told you that the outcome has nothing to do with you speaking the truth? What if I told you that? That you need to let go of the outcome while you're speaking the truth. I'll explain this in a very simple example. Jordan Peterson put it perfectly when he said, do you believe that reality is best constituted as a consequence of telling the truth or as a consequence of telling lies? Let me put it simply. Do you believe that if you lie all the damn time, if you just lie, and everyone around you is lying all the time, do you think the world would be a better place? No. But do you think that if people just spoke the truth and nothing else except the truth, do you think the world would be a better place? Definitely, 100% the world would be a better place. So if you're a believer in the truth aspect, then regardless of what the outcome will be, you are not concerned with that, because at the end of the day, what you're concerned with is telling the truth, because you have internalized that regardless of what happens, if it is a consequence of telling the truth, then it is the best possible outcome that can ever come out. That is the true belief system that you need to have within yourself. Now, I'll give you some homework. For the next week straight, every single one of you in this audience, for the next week straight, just monitor yourself and notice where you lie. Now, you might think, nah, I don't lie, bro. I never lie. I always tell the truth. I pray 5 times a day. What are you talking about? I don't lie. You can make that claim. But notice yourself. You will tell these small little white lies. And when you're telling these lies, whenever the thought comes into your head, always write it down. Write down why you were lying and what you were lying about. You will find out that there are multiple lies that you tell throughout the day that you don't even need to lie about. It's just become part of your character because it's become so embedded within you because you need to get out of the outcome that you think will happen. And human beings truly believe that we have some control over the outcome, which is absolutely not the case. I'll explain this. One liar can lead to 1 million people. This is beautiful. Now, I know you guys are medical students, but I'll still explain it in mathematical terms because I'm an engineer. You're the center of a very powerful node. Now, let me explain. You're the center of a very powerful node. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you, Morvis, would know 1,000 people in your life. At least. Okay? At least 1,000 people in your life. Each one of those 1,000 people will know another 1,000 people in their life. So mathematically and technically, you are only one person away from 1 million people. And 2 people away from 1 billion people. So if you tell the truth, and you tell the truth to one person, you're technically telling the truth to 1 million people because you're the center of a very powerful node. Or if you start to lie and you lie to one person and they're convinced, you have technically lied to 1 million people. Scratch that. We like to gossip. We tell lies in group settings. We tell lies in front of television. We tell lies to the media. Media everywhere. People are just focused on closing the deal, getting that bag, and somehow, with true lies, they're able to do that. But if you lie to 2 people, you have basically lied to 1 billion people. Let's just put that into perspective. You might think that you're just a speck, as Imam alayhi salam quotes, You might think you're just a speck, but within you is the entire universe. So your impact is also on the entire universe, if you look at it. So what do? You need to let go of the outcome completely. Absolutely let go of the outcome and trust the process. And know it within yourself that if the world is best constituted as a consequence of telling the truth, then whatever happens is the best possible outcome that could have possibly ever happened because it is a consequence of telling the truth. That is it. Now, after I was done with context and truth, I was still in a conundrum. I was still stuck. I was like, there's still a piece of the puzzle that's missing. Even if you have context, even if you have the truth right in front of you. As I told you in the story of Socrates, the people still killed him, didn't they? He still died, even though the Athenians had context, even though the Athenians had the truth right in front of them. They still, what did they do? They killed him. So how I knew that I was missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And that is when the love of my life, who would get so mad at me if I didn't give her credit, she also helped me with the presentation. She found this quote, which is a beautiful quote. And it says, love, it is the reason there is something instead of nothing. It is from the soil of love that all of existence blossoms into being. Love is why we are here. Now, love is beautiful. Part 3, love. Now, if you look at love subjectively, it encapsulates everything. Love is honest. Love is open to new perspectives. With love, it is to take a chance. To love is a divine quality. To love is to be open to a new perspective. To love is to be hopeful. Even in the darkest of times, it was only love that actually pulled me out of that time and saved me. And I'm certain it is the same for many of you sitting here in the audience. Love is what sustains us. Love is what unites us. Love is what causes nations to flourish. That is the impact that love has. But what is the source of love? Who put this idea of love within me? When I started thinking about that question, I came to a pretty cool answer, in my opinion. I came to a pretty solid answer. And the answer was from the source itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He put the feeling of love within me, then He had that amount of love to give to me a little bit of His love. A little bit of His love was put into my heart. And it blossoms into everything else. It's the same for each one of you. It blossoms into families, a lineage, every single thing. That's what love does. Now, when I got to this point, it was I'll give you a fast cash course because I have less time left. But I stumbled upon the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. Now, Prophet Musa alayhi salam punched a man. That man died. He was now in the desert. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to do what? He tells him to go and talk to Pharaoh, the Pharaoh. And how does he tell him to do that? That's what's the most interesting part. Speak to him gently so that he may take heed or show respect. Quran 20:44. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling Prophet Musa to talk to Pharaoh and give him respect and speak to him gently? You would think not spitting in Pharaoh's face would be considered a sin. That's how much of a tyrannical ruler he was. Not only this, not only in the Quran, but there's a hadith, the beautiful hadith. Help your brother whether he is an oppressor or he is an oppressed one. Sahih Bukhari, volume 3, book 43, numbered 623. Help your brother if he is whether he is an oppressor or he is an oppressed one. Now, where does that leave us with? Why is the Prophet calling these oppressors as your brother? It is because if you look at context, even if you have the proper context, even if what you're saying is the truth, if you don't look at it through the lens of love, and if you don't say that message with compassion and respect towards whoever you're talking to, let it be Pharaoh or let it be my ex who's a very close second to Pharaoh. So it could be either one of those people, but if you talk to them with some amount of compassion, then only will you be able to understand different perspectives. So, what I want to leave you all with is a conversation is only fruitful if both parties have mutual compassion and respect for each other. A conversation is only fruitful is if you have the proper context. There's no falsification to your context. Is only fruitful if you're speaking the truth and nothing except the truth. A conversation is only fruitful if you show each other mutual respect and compassion when you're dealing with them. Understand their point, their perspective. You're here listening to these speakers. Everyone has a separate perspective. Mine is completely different. But the fact that you are listening to me here and giving me the chance to explain my perspective, that shows me compassion. That shows me respect. So, in the end, what really matters? It is the easiest way for me to explain what really matters is through this picture. This picture will start to make a lot of sense when I show you the next slide. It is CTL, context, truth, love. So every single time when you're in a situation where you're like, what should I do? I'm in a difficult situation. Focus on the fact that you're a chicken tender lover. CTL, context, truth, and love. If you have these three things, then only are you open to new perspectives. Then only are you able to grasp what the other person is saying. And then only can you have fruitful conversation that will actually lead to something. Thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk. I wanted to say that without it being a joke in front of a group of friends in which I've been speaking a lot. So thank you so much.